carried away. I was involved in pre-show talk. Totally carried away. Hey, you found us. It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil, Amok to you. How are you? Good to see you. A Friday is over. A week's long period of Trump lies over. I guess I went through the X transcript listening to Elon Musk. I know he said it on like Monday or Tuesday. I finally got to it, and man, that guy! It's just like he's just talking off the top of his head with Elon Musk, and Musk is really kind of egging him on, as you'd expect. He's throwing him up softballs. He's giving the campaign like tens of millions of dollars a month. So that's his right. And Trump is just nodding his head saying, yeah. Oh, yeah, Elon. I don't know. I mean, it's worth seeing because it's very, I think you could say it's very revealing about Trump, what Trump would say under these circumstances where he thinks, hey, it's just, let your hair hang down, such as it is, his orange hair. He's letting it all hang out, and with some with lies, some with outright lies. And you can read about my reaction to when Elon Musk brings up Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I just thought rather dismissive of 250,000 people dying from a nuclear bomb attack in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, I thought. Anyway, check out my column on the ALDEF site, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, aldef.org/blog. I also talk about the politics of mispronunciation, because if you were watching Abby Phillips' program on CNN last night, you saw that there was Nancy Mace, representative of South Carolina, Republican, who just continued to mispronounce Kamala Harris's name. It's Kamala, not Kamala, not whatever you want to say. It's Kamala. And she was called on it. And instead of graciously saying, yeah, you're right, I'll say Kamala, which of course Republicans never do, she just said, she was defiant. She said, I'm going to call her whatever I want. So see my column on the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog. And I talk about this because, with a name like Emil that looks like Emil, that is sometimes pronounced Emil and sometimes written email, I'm sensitive to this too. And I think that it just shows you this newfangled rhetoric. It's not newfangled. It's just an old style. It's racist, for one. How it is kind of this anthem of unity for all of Harris's detractors. But in mixed company, it comes across as rude, racist, and discourteous. It is the politics of mispronunciation. And I write about it on the ALDEF blog, along with some other things. Anyway, catch it there. Meanwhile, some of the other news that's breaking as we begin our show today. Axios is concerned about how the recession appears to be on again, off again, on again, and now off. And it's important because as you hear people talk about economic plans from the left and from the right, you got to wonder, how bad is it? If it's not that bad, maybe we don't fix it or need to fix it as much as you think. And yet, as is always the case, there's a lot of conflicting data. So, for example, consumers falling farther behind in debt, credit card payments, the unemployment rate rose to 4.3% in July. So that suggested high risk of a recession. The good news, consumer spending surged in July. So it looks like maybe it's really over, right? And then we had the forecast of, that the economy grew at a solid 2% rate in the third quarter. So this all goes to show that whenever you hear people, Harris, Trump, talk about economic plans, take it with a grain of salt. It's going to depend on where we are. Right now, maybe for now, recession is off. There's conflicting signs, but they'll be talking about this. They'll be talking about this in the next week, especially when the Democrats have their convention in Chicago. Another thing the Axios is talking about is how the Republicans are upset with just how Trump seems to be kind of off the rails. And if you saw that press conference yesterday, he's sort of on message and then he goes off message. And what does he do? He goes straight for ad hominem attacks against Harris. She's not smart enough. She's not intelligent. She's the worst president. Thinking that he can brand her a loser easier than he can brand her as someone with bad policies. Because in the end, in some ways, I kind of agree with Trump. If you want to attack someone, especially in this era of low information voters, the visceral, if you like him, if you don't like him, and if you hear the guy you like diss the other person, and so in these real vile, personal ways, it makes you wonder, well, I'm with him, so I'm going to vote. I hate her. If you're reasonable, you'll say, wow, this guy wants to be president of everyone in our country. Why isn't he more genial? Why does he act as vile and as rude as he is? And that's what some of the Republicans are saying. Why can't you be nice? And as I mentioned in my column, Trump said, hey, why should I be nice? They're trying to put me in prison, which may be the reason why Trump is sort of coming apart, because he's desperately trying to stay out of prison, which may be his next stop, considering that his sentencing is September 20th or something. Unless he can stop it, I doubt it. Those 34 convictions are saying, hey, we need to put a fellow behind bars, and that guy is Donald Trump. So the big news today on Friday, though, is Vice President Harris detailed that economic agenda at a special North Carolina rally. And some of the things that she's talking about, a big child tax credit, which sort of offsets whatever J.D. Vance has in mind about America and children and the family. Subsidies for first-time home buyers, like to help with down payments, maybe up to $25,000. And there's penalties for price gouging on certain products, but specifically food. So that's all on the table. Once again, still some questions, details lacking. It would be good if Harris submitted to an interview or direct press questioning about those plans. She hasn't yet, but they will in due course. They'll be unveiled, I'm sure, in more detail next week and in coming weeks, and she will have to face the press. There's no doubt about it. But one thing, or one reason why you see the Republicans really pressing for Harris to speak more in direct interviews with the media is so they have more things to pick her apart on. Because you see how willing Donald Trump is to go into direct interviews like Elon Musk on X. And he leaves a trail on X, if you read the transcript, of all the lies and his coming unglued. I think Kamala Harris is playing it just right. There will be a time for her to be interviewed. There will be a time for her to specifically say what exactly is in that economic plan. As for now, she's riding that honeymoon wave, and she's riding it all the way to Chicago. And I think it's not going to be a coronation, but I think it will be something next week in Chicago. A lively party not seen among the Democrats since Obama, and certainly something that wouldn't have happened if Joe Biden was the nominee. Kind of sad to see Biden and Harris for the first time yesterday. And he was all deferential to Harris. He knows that she is going to be the standard bearer for the Democrats come next week. And he shared the stage with Grace. And he also indicated what he thinks is happening with the Republican campaign against Harris. He said, hey, they're trying to make it a race campaign. They're trying to make it about race and who she is and who we are. And to his disapproval, he just doesn't think that's going to work. I don't think it's going to work either. But let's bring up our friend, Professor Emeritus, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University, Asian American Studies professor. Politics is his bailiwick. Professor Daniel Phil Gonzalez. Let me put you on the left where you belong. Dan, Professor Dan.
On the far left, then and only have half my face on the screen. Right.
You wouldn't be on the screen then. Hey,
I'm
Dan.
beyond progressive. I'm a freaking radical.
Well,
I mean, if they can call Harris and Walz, communists, then I got to be to the left of the communists, right?
Yeah. Well, I know you're to the left of Walz, and you're certainly to the left of Harris, but that's one of the things. Trump is calling some of her measures communist and calling her a San Francisco liberal at the same time, which I don't think is communist. San Francisco liberal is not that communist.
Yeah, well, there's a whole lot of people in the rest of America that feel that way. Then they felt that way before Trump ever said things like that.
Yeah.
I constantly reminded my students that when you travel throughout the United States, remember that the coasts love us, but the middle of America thinks we're super strange.
Yeah. Well, tell me what you think of Kamala Harris's policies that she.
Oh, they're definitely communist.
Yeah, I mean, she hinted at them. There were some details, but not many, and we don't exactly how they're going to come across.
Okay.
I mean, they help. They certainly help.
The big ones are something that's been done in the past, right? One, a $6,000 per annual tax credit per child,
right?
Which is good, supportive, and makes sense given the costs of childcare, which all of us have borne. And it was bad when my kids were young, and the eldest is now 45 years old. So if we're talking about childcare being a problem, then I can vouch for the fact that not only for 45 years, for 50 years, maybe even 55 years, childcare costs have been a burden. Okay, that make having children very difficult. I know that people started measuring whether or not economically they were going to have more kids. I mean, it was a serious way of looking at childbearing.
Yeah,
and that's
or what
years ago.
Yeah, or whether or not you can even go to work. Why work if you can't afford the child care? I mean, that was another.
Well, especially if you're working class and lower middle class.
Oh, sure.
Sure. I mean, and then we have people being called welfare queens by Mr. Reagan. And, the reality is they were confronted with this same problem. Do I take the welfare and the AFDC, right, aid to financially dependent children, or do I go to work and I can't afford that because childcare costs more than I make.
Yeah.
So I might as well not work, take care of the kids at home, and take the AFDC and the general assistance. So that's the reality, and those are the people that people on the right, and the guy that gets glorified by the right all the time, Mr. Reagan. That's exactly what his belief was, and that's exactly what his policies were. And
So when
and he was assisted later by Mr. Clinton with work
yeah,
there.
yeah, well, so when Kamala Harris mentions this, it's going to be popular among people. It'll be attacked by Trump as although will it? Because it does seem to abate some of the issues of child, of family, some of the family issues that JD Vance has.
Yeah. Uh, you know, but see, at the core is how is it going to be funded, and what Vance and the Republicans generally, right? Then this is once again, this is pre-Trump, pre-Vance, so it's always been a Republican position.
Yeah,
They have not. They have always said we're pro-family. You know, the family is sacrosanct, but they've never done. They've never done a damn police. They really haven't. They actually made it worse, right? By
yeah.
shifting the burden of taxes onto the middle class. You know, you cannot separate the fact that the super class, the super elite,
Mhm.
that what I think it's two people in American society have greater control over the economy and their shares in the profits of American corporations than 80% of the rest of the population.
Well, there it
Okay.
is. That's the inequality that exists, and however you look at all the details that were revealed today, and they were detailed to a point, not nearly the level of detail needed to make a final uh, to make a final evaluation and say, yeah, this is good or bad. But it seems to be on the right track, and I think that most people who are working class will say, yay, those are good measures for regular people. And Kamala Harris calls herself a people oriented, consumer oriented campaign versus Trump, which is really for the elites, the the large corporations. It really is a contrast there, showing the difference between regular people and those in the one
And
percent.
once again, these are all traditional Republican positions. You can go all the way back to the Bushes, okay, and GW. Remember what his right after his inauguration, he had his big meeting with his base, and it was all elite corporate interests and everybody with Harvard, Yale, Columbia educations, right? And what did he say? Princeton. What did he say? He said, "You're my base." That's all you got to understand. So this is something that has existed for the Republican Party forever. This has always been
Yeah,
there. There are consistent anti-tax, small government, right, positions that they take. The thing is, when they say anti tax, it's clear that it means anti tax for the richest people in American society. Okay?
yeah, yeah. I mean, but the base at GW referred to clearly different from the base of Donald Trump, which is this odd bedfellows of that 1% plus the working class blue collar types who see in Donald Trump as their guy, even though he is not the guy in their interest.
Well, for the most of those people, it's not only an issue of economics and the way they see economics. I mean, they actually believe in the fiction that Donald Trump is a good businessman. Okay,
Yeah,
so you could start with that. And I remember seeing a lot of people in the Midwest being interviewed on the street back when he was running, and people were saying, "Yeah, we got to get a businessman in there, right, running government." And so
yeah,
immediately, my thought was, well, they don't understand the difference between governing, right, and running a business. They're two different things. And after, even Jefferson and Adams, didn't agree on much. But one thing that they did agree on was that the general population did not understand how the economics works. They didn't understand the function of money. And so, what I say in my classes is, what's changed? Most of America still doesn't understand it. And even though Econ 100 and 101 can be required general education courses, right? What's the
Mhm.
content of those courses? I got flunked because I asked the professor way back in 1968, right? I asked, when are we going to talk about value added theory, right? And he said, well, this isn't an appropriate forum to discuss value added theory. And I said, well, I thought that the title of the course is macroeconomics. Boom, there was my F. Okay. And that's one of the reasons why I joined the strike at SF State was because of that kind of thinking. They wouldn't even let you talk about that at Berkeley. One of the reasons that the free speech movement got started at Berkeley is because they wouldn't even let them talk about the distinctions between socialism and capitalism. I mean, it's the two biggest systems in the whole friggin' world, and they wouldn't let them talk about that in class or otherwise at Berkeley. That started the free speech movement, along with civil rights, of course.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So, one of the things about Trump, I don't expect him to be all intellectual, but
Oh, why
you know,
not?
well, because he's not appealing to an intellectual crowd. I mean, by being virtue the guy with the keys to to help the corporates, he helps them. But the people who drive him, the people who put him in office, are that those people at the base, and those people do
You mean the
not, as
voters?
you
You're
put
talking
it.
about
They,
voters. Yes,
well,
voters put him in
you
office.
said, yeah, you just said that they don't care about they don't understand the economics. And in some ways, that's not the reason why they like Trump. They like Trump because he speaks to these other issues that they care about.
You
And a
mean
lot
like
of,
racism and misogyny?
well, those are the two that come to mind. I mean, it is,
Instantly. That's the sad part. Instantly, they come to mind
yeah,
because he makes it easy. You
yeah,
know, she turned black. I mean,
yeah,
she was never black.
yeah,
She was always, and her own biography and her own public statement, she talks about the fact that her mother wanted to make sure she understood, right,
yeah,
her ancestry on both sides, and that she educated. She wanted to make sure that Kamala and her sister, you know, were both well informed about their black, and then they grew up on that Oakland Berkeley border,
yeah. No, she's always been
so
black.
their neighbors were.
Where I have
And then, so
my
you get a
issue,
racist white man,
yeah,
racist misogynist white man, has the arrogance to be able to say, "I get to define you and your race," Ms. Harris, right? I'm the one
yeah,
who can get call that into question. So not only is that insensitivity, it's absolute racist arrogance. Okay,
yeah.
and I
Well,
think you and I are very familiar personally in our own personal stories with racist arrogance. The people
oh
just
yeah.
believe in the righteousness of their racism.
Well, what I find is that still, in spite, despite the fact that a lot of people have, presented analysis about, Trump's, questioning her, her blackness. I, for one, have questioned for a long time her Asianness, or whether or not,
Oh no,
or
we're going to do
why.
that.
I,
Yeah,
I've always questioned why she has held back and talking about her Asianness selectively, like when she was running for president in 2020, or yeah, in 2020, she did not.
because
And
she knows it would be like Obama's talking about his white half.
yeah, well, I mean,
She
to
knows that it
me,
weakens her in the eyes. She was already suspect in the eyes of a large percentage of the black community, right?
yeah, yeah, but I saw it
Especially
as,
among
look,
black men.
but I'm Asian American, and I saw it as, hey, listen, this is like, she's one of us. She's running for the highest office of the land. I want to feel included, and I was feeling like she was. I was questioning why she did it three times at an opening town hall on CNN with Jake Tapper in 2020. She wouldn't. She was even given an opportunity.
She screwed up her own. Okay, okay, that she screwed up her presidential campaign. She really
Yeah.
did. I mean, I don't want to put it all on her campaign managers. Okay,
Mm.
but I don't think they knew. You know, I don't think even if she had African American and South Asian or Indian campaign leaders, right, working for her, I don't think they know how to deal with with biculturality. They
Well,
really don't.
that is an issue. I don't think anyone did. We're 4 years down the road now. She's a little smarter candidate, and since she won, and as a vice presidential candidate with Biden, people had to address the historical nature of being both Asian and African American, and that was new when she was the Biden Harris team were inaugurated. But now there's they people still haven't learned. It's still, but at least they're going forward. And after Trump made his statements at NABJ, questioning her blackness, I think people are now more attuned that she can be both. She is both. She can be both. And now all of us, African Americans and Asian Americans looking on, can feel like, hey, there's our candidate.
Let me draw some parallels historically, right? Back in the 1970s, one Asian American population, right,
Mm,
was experiencing outmarriage at a higher rate than the other two large populations. The three populations were one, Japanese Americans, they were the largest, okay, because the effects of the 1965 Reformed Immigration Act, right, would not actually have an impact. It wouldn't start until 1967, and then it continued all the way up until 1971 when the new immigrants, new arrivals, post 65, right, began to outnumber the existing, pre-existing Asian American populations, okay,
mm,
which were also majority immigrant, right? We're talking about our parents' generation, my parents' generation, okay? We're talking about the Issei for Japanese Americans, right? And anthropologists and sociologists, they count the same way that Japanese do. Okay, so the first generation immigrants are the people who came here from another country. Second generation are people born here, and then in the early '80s, the Korean Americans came up with the concept of 1.5s, right? People who were born elsewhere but came here at a young age, and that much more resemble the social and psychological characteristics of people second generations. Okay, what the Japanese American community was going through in the early 70s was an identity crisis. And what they said was if we keep seeing our females, because it's mostly women that were marrying out, Japanese American women marrying out, majority marrying out to whites, and a smaller number marrying out to other groups of color, right? They usually other Asians, right? Particularly Chinese and Filipino. But those things were happening back in the 70s, and the Japanese American leadership, especially older generation World War II experienced leadership, concentration camp experienced leadership, said if this outmarriage thing keeps continuing, we will no longer have a Japanese American community. Well, here we are 60 years later, right? And is there still a Japanese American community?
barely.
Yeah,
Here.
apparently,
Yeah.
and all of that out marriage has continued, and not only that, Japanese American men have also out married, but there is still an identification with being Japanese American. There's still an identification with traditional Japanese culture to a substantial extent.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
when I say barely, I mean that the out marriage has impacted their numbers,
Hmm.
and that's what I mean barely.
Yes.
But it means that we have a multicultural appreciation of each other. That
It
we
also means that people have identities, right, that are solid, even though they may be multi or biracial, triracial, okay, bi-ethnic or tri-ethnic. They still have the ability to identify with those ethnicities or that biraciality.
Not
Okay,
and not only do they have the ability to identify, they have the right to. It's your
absolutely.
right. It's your right
But
to say I am this or I am that,
the
and to
last
be
time I met
secretive
with
about
you,
it.
the last time I met with you, though, I said it presented a problem to the Japanese American community because the way they defined the Japanese American community.
Mhm,
Then I think the last time I was with you, I brought up the fact that in the late 70s and again, especially in the late 80s, when the mixed race category was added to the census, okay,
mhm.
the African American community majority was against that category because
Oh yeah,
they knew that there are going to be a lot of African Americans that are going to enter as mixed American, and they thought it's going to water down, right, our census figures, and that census material gets used to determine who gets a share of federal funding, that kind of thing.
right. No, I remember those days, and it was a matter of a kind of self preservation among African Americans that
But
they did not want. That
yes, but it wasn't only a numerical or a census issue, or a federal money issue. It was also cultural. They want you to identify solidly with the black side of your ethnicity or your racial identity. And the same, I'm not just putting that on black people, right?
yeah, I
Brown
know.
people think that way. I got students who said it's really difficult for me to even date because my grandparents want me not only to date only Filipinos, they want me to date a Filipino from the same freaking province as my
Yeah,
parents and grandparents. This
sure,
is
sure.
real. This is real, okay?
Oh yeah, like they don't ask for an arranged marriage. They don't go that far. But oh, maybe
Sometimes.
sometimes they do. I mean, look,
Yeah.
they only brought up the idea of me marrying a nurse once during my time. But
Yeah, but that's
I'm
pretty
just
easy.
saying.
That's pretty easy. There's so many narcissists.
I know, but this is the thing. We're going through this racial evolution and biracial, the biracial designation on the census, one of the fastest growing, several hundred
Yeah.
percent growth in just 10 years. So this is what America is going to be. This is one of the reasons why I find Kamala Harris, who is about to be nominated as the standard bearer for the Democrats, I think it's kind of a this historical a watermark
It is an
for our
indication
country.
of the reality of diversity, right? It's reality. Okay.
Yeah.
Remember when people were coming up and they were criticizing the hell out of multiculturality and right as theory
Oh
and all
yeah.
that stuff,
Yeah.
and I criticized it too because it was an oversimplification. But what it was good for was showing to the general public that something was happening, and that thing that was happening was a racial and cultural reality. Okay, now it's up to the public whether or not they can accept that.
Yeah.
Okay, and when people ask me, well, why should they accept it? What are the indications that the cultural changes happened and that people aren't threatened by? And I said, you understand what taco? You know,
Or or
it's a
Panda
harpified
Express.
way of presenting Mexican food
Yeah.
to the general public, right? That's
Yeah.
what it is. It's whitened up enough so
Yeah.
that it'll be palatable to people who are not Latino or Mexican in descent, right?
Oh
That's what
wait,
it's
well
for.
What about Panda Express? That's owned by
Yeah, but that's a recent phenomenon, man. I mean,
yeah.
that's less than
That's
20
owned
years
by
old. We're talking
Chinese
about
too.
20 years old. I mean, we're talking
Yeah.
about burritos. When I was in high school, they came out with bean burritos, right? Remember those things that they used to
Oh yeah.
sell? You could radar range
Yeah.
them at school.
Yeah.
Those came out in like in what, 64?
Yeah.
1963, 64. When I went to Mexico, I took my girlfriend, now my wife, to Mexico, and in the early 70s, right, before going to law school, I kept on going to aburrotes, it's the grocery stores. Guys got burritos, and
Yeah.
they look at me like, "What's a burrito?" It was an
So,
American phenomenon, and I was gathering casual evidence to prove my point that
yeah.
some things are American made. Okay, some things are American made. So the whole question of, okay, who developed the way that chow mein, especially with sliced asparagus in it, right, which is not indigenous to Asia at all. How did that get there?
Well, I don't
And
know.
my argument is it was developed right here in California, where there's all kinds of asparagus fields in the Central Valley,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
So
The Central Valley Asians stuck
gee,
that
how did that
asparagus.
happen? And what have Chinese done in the restaurants? They substituted the red Chinese pepper, the traditional, the red roasted Chinese pepper. There's
Mhm.
jalapenos in our food now, man.
Oh yeah. Well, all right. So
So
this is the emerging
yes,
multiculturalism in
yes,
society, and that's
yes.
why we
And
should
it's
look
been
at
happening. It's
we
part
should
of reality. It's reality in
just
American society. The people who don't understand it are simply resistant to it because they feel that it threatens their core of power. That's what it comes down to.
and that is why you have people in the Trump base who are who back Trump, even though his interests aren't necessarily their interests economically, but his interest is their interest when it comes racially and culturally.
Well, then how do you explain all of those African Americans that seem to populate his background when he's making his
I I
his
think that this
anti-intelligence speeches?
right. Well, this is one of the things that has come up in the last couple of weeks.
Oh
The
no,
idea, the
only
idea
the last
that
couple of weeks.
that black men have an issue with Kamala Harris, and
But black men have, I've been told this by black women, particularly highly educated black women, in Africana studies for
yeah,
years. And that is, we're used to being lonely. And one of the reasons is black men don't like us. Black men want their women to have straight hair, okay, and not be challenging them with uppity degrees, right? Advanced education and notions about life that are beyond their interest or ken.
now who's
And
saying this? People in the Africana studies that you've talked to and within
absolutely, I just said that.
yeah
I just said that. A couple of my favorite, well, one, was she was not anti men, but she preferred the company of women. She preferred the
yeah.
company of
All
men.
right, but
But the other was definitely heterosexual, and she told me this. It's got to be 40 years. Okay,
yeah. All right, look, in the last since Kamala Harris has flipped and become the top of the ticket, you had African American men coming out saying, "Look, we got to support this sister. She's ours," and they went against that stereotype.
it's about time.
There was that big Zoom rally right after the Divine Nine, the sororities
That's
did
right.
the
The
tribute
sororities
for
came out.
then the black man did, and then just recently, there was an article in the New York Times that said that they talked about it like the elephant in the room, and very um, prominent African American men in the community said, "Hey, look, it's time we back this sister. There's nothing about backing her that denotes anything about your lack of manhood or your lack of power." And I think for a lot of people, that was a kind of like they couldn't understand that was going on. But misogyny exists no matter what
Yeah,
the
that's
race.
that's right. That's right. And people, because gains that were earned, right, by black women over these past, I don't know, more than 100 years, right? But especially in the post World War II,
Mhm.
the gains that they've earned and achieved, um, really, what can I say? It even had an economic impact, right?
Mhm.
Because they were like Filipino women. They were earning more money than their husbands.
Yeah.
The World War II Filipino veteran, right, was, in economic terms and in social terms, you had the college educated element, which was a minority, and you had the larger working class, lower middle class element, which was the majority. The thing that made the difference in the growth of our community was the GI Bill
Oh yeah, yeah.
and the fact that Filipinos were not subject to the same exclusionary practices that African American men were subjected to. Okay. A lot of them were restricted, but depending on what region of the United States they were living in, right, from receiving GI benefits.
Right, right.
Okay. But my father, along with the rest of the Filipinos that served, particularly in the U.S. military during the Second World War, were eligible to receive GI benefits, and so my parents, bought their first home in part on GI benefits, and not people don't realize there was a 5% guaranteed down payment. Okay,
Well,
that was one of the GI benefits.
it's funny that a lot of the things that you're talking about that help people rise up. That's exactly what Kamala Harris announced in her economic plan today, talking about helping first-time buyers with up to 25,000 in down payment. I mean,
Yeah,
trying to appease or trying to appeal to the makers of, you know, of affordable housing, the
yep,
builders,
yep.
try to get them, to build more affordable housing. So there's something happening when you have a woman like Kamala Harris who is always mentions the fact that her parents or her mother was a renter. She grew up as a renter.
Mm-hmm.
They
That's
didn't
right.
have as much money as other people. I mean, it's very similar to my background, except my mother, neither of my parents were animal vivisectors, but I mean, at least her mom was a anti-cancer researcher, unfortunately, who tested on animals, but she still had a middle class type of job, living. Kamala grew up in Canada part of the time, but certainly her life is nothing like the life of Donald Trump, who grew up with a mouthful of silver spoons. So you know you can see the contrast that she's building up.
He paid for the silver spoon with bone spurs,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Not to mention the fact
which he used to evade the draft. Right.
he did not serve. He did not.
Yeah, so you got Mr. Vance who is denigrating Mr. Waltz,
Yeah,
and he is uplifting his presidential candidate who evaded the draft and also called military veterans fools.
yeah. Well, all this Oppo research is coming out now, and here's what I feel about all this. I feel like you're going to hear stuff, revealed in the press. Someone found this, someone found that. Oh, look, isn't this or like the DUI, Walls's DUI, and they're going to say, oh, he fortunately he didn't hurt anybody. He was doing like 96 in a 55 zone, something like that. But some people are trying to make hay out of that. Is that going to change your vote? That you know 30 years ago,
Yeah, probably not.
do you,
Yeah, he didn't hurt anybody. And the other thing is, a lot of people are actually going to identify with that and say, "Oh yeah, oh, I
well,
didn't get caught, but I've done stuff like that.
sure,
I got caught and I never did it again. Right? I got punished for it. That kind of thing. Right?
yeah,
So it cuts both ways.
yeah.
But they're
There's
going to try
potential.
it. If they're going to try and say, okay, this shows immorality, they're going to do that. They're going to do
Yeah,
that. When, you got a guy that has
34 convictions.
reputedly, yeah, he has a sticky couch.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Well,
then yeah.
here's
I
the
don't know
thing
if
about.
that's a moral issue. Is that a moral issue? I don't think so. I
Well,
think
here's
it's a weird issue.
yeah. Well, here's the thing about Trump. Every issue point from immigration to economics to, I mean, you can fight that battle. Trump can't win that battle because he's compromised himself. Like on the immigration issue could have been partially solved, not totally
Yeah,
solved, but
yeah,
he told his Republican folks to like lay off that. I need something to run on, which is that's not that's not the way it should be in American politics, where you purposely make a situation worse by not solving it right away because you want to have the you want to bring it up on your own and take credit for
Well,
that.
that's the difference between a traditional Republican Party. The probability is that the Republican traditionalists,
Mhm.
who have been ejected from the party for all intents and purposes,
Oh
right?
yeah,
That they may have agreed with that compromise. In fact, Langford is a true traditional conservative, and he was the guy that was most responsible for bringing the Democrats to what I consider the political center with that bill.
yeah,
And then he
and
got
then
burned. He got burned by the rest of his party. And I was really surprised. I mean, he backed off immediately, right? You didn't hear him saying they should have done this. He just said, yeah, well, they burned it, and
yeah,
they burned it. He didn't even say they burned it because the orange guy forced him to burn it. He just backed off entirely. And the strongest statement he made was, yes, it had Republican bipartisan support, participation, and support.
yeah.
That's it.
Well, like I said, every issue you can come up with something like that where uh, you know debating issues one's better than the other. Uh, that's not what's going to make people come to your side and vote for you. And I think
Well, okay, is you use the word populist, right? And the general media has been using the word populist in description of Harris's statements today. Okay,
yeah,
um,
I didn't use populist. I think I used people oriented, consumer oriented, people
okay,
oriented, consumer
okay.
oriented, middle class oriented.
Well, I'm
Not,
sorry if
not so
I
much popular.
misspoke
No,
about
that's all right. But no, but populism
you meant no.
is
You know what I think you said popular.
popular.
You said
Well,
it was
yeah.
popular, and it was I that you know.
Well, but it is populist in a sense, but it's like both sides of populism. At least with if Harris is populist, at least she has this economic populism, which uh, sides with people over corporates. Uh, Trump has a populism that sides with people who want to give him absolute power. That's that's his populism, also called autocracy, also called
Yeah,
just
but that's not the reason for his appeal. The reason the general media
mm,
has adopted the use of the word populism to describe Trump, right, from his beginning, is because he pretends to make statements that are favorable towards that greater population, right, in American society, okay, devoid of racial reference and devoid of socioeconomic reference, okay.
mm.
That is a big mistake by the media because populism has both, all three. It has racial, right, cultural, economic positioning, right, and half of populism. The other half of populism is a leadership that says only I can fix it, and that's
Oh yeah, yeah.
exactly what Trump was saying.
That's what I
Only
mean.
I can fix it.
That
Okay.
that is the autocratic side of populism.
Yes,
That is the side
but
that's
so
yeah,
what are they doing when they say Harris? Harris is making all these populism, suggestions, right? I mean, once
it's
again, the media is stepping all over its own tongue, and they're
yeah.
misinforming the general public by not using the term in an appropriate manner.
Well,
Okay.
I agree. They have they've taken a populist one side of the definition and and have confused the populace.
Yeah, that's right. So Hitlerian populism, right,
Yeah,
is turned into fascism, right? And
yeah.
people don't make that connection. If you want to make that, what was what was his Italian buddies, approach? It was also a populist approach.
Um,
Okay, so
Mussolini,
yeah, Mussolini, I called him
Mussolini. Yeah.
Mussolini. Yeah,
Like I said, I mean it's it's the authoritarian part of populism that is Trump, and it's the economic side that is Harris, and it's
yeah,
you
yeah,
know it
yeah.
confuses people who say, "Oh, which populist am I for?
Exactly.
The populist with freedom or the populist with
Which
no freedom?"
populism is more popular? I don't know. Can we get this? Huh? Huh? Well, you know what? Ask ask the woman who just had a populist assassination threat, right?
Oh,
In Germany and Austria, right? You know.
yeah.
But anyway,
How about in Venezuela? That's tough there
oh,
too.
oh, that is
Yeah,
really interesting. That is a really
yeah,
interesting situation.
yeah,
Um,
and especially if the United States, if they do they give some kind of make a deal with Maduro to come to so that Maduro comes to America? Possible
give them a
even?
safe place to land. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, see, they made a deal with, remember Panama.
yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
with Noriega.
yeah. So,
Well, that's
so you
because
know, I mean, they all want a safe place to land. How about Bolsonaro?
yeah.
You
Well,
know,
I mean
I mean, yeah,
that's why Trump needs Putin. He because he wants to at least have a
yeah,
safe
yeah.
place to
No,
go.
there's a
That
bunch of places that are rather nice. I mean, Croatia is really nice.
for
You
Trump.
know,
Yeah, yeah,
he
but
could go there. I mean, it's rather Mediterranean, really. You know,
oh yeah, yeah. Croatia is. Croatia
you
is.
know,
That's true.
and yeah, they get they. You know, I don't know if they make hard liquor. They probably do, but they do.
Yeah.
They certainly make good wine. You know.
All right. So, Dan, last word on the convention next week.
Oh
I
boy,
is it going to be?
68.
Yeah. I I am not going to go. I was going to go, thinking about it, but look, 68. I mean, the 2020 convention reminded me of how much this whole thing is a TV show. So,
Yeah.
as a media person looking at it, I'm going to review it as a TV show because you could still talk about all the rhetoric. You don't get all the dirty, nasty stuff that happens on the floor. But what kind of dirty stuff is there left to do? I mean, they've already decided the dirtiest thing, which is replace Joe Biden. So, what do
Yeah, no, you know where the action is going to be is it's going to come up from the street. It's going to be
yeah,
the anti-Israel stuff and a lot of other complaints too. I mean,
yeah.
there's
No,
it's
but
just
you're right. Did you
yeah,
see this uh, the Harris fundraiser at the Fairmont in San Francisco?
yeah, that
There was there were
yeah,
about 200 protesters outside,
yeah.
and uh, she didn't see them, and I don't think she heard them, but people reported on them. I think her views are, well, people know her views. She's for Israel's right to exist and Israel's right to defend itself.
It's essentially like Biden's position,
Yeah,
but she has expressed more concern for Palestinians and particularly for Gaza than President Biden had.
yeah,
So that's where it's at, right?
yeah. But
So
how can you not though? I mean,
yeah, that's right.
those new pictures of kids
Yeah,
dying, in the
yeah.
news.
What the what I wanted us to get into is that the whole thing about people being biracial or multiracial and multi-ethnic,
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
easily accepted by the younger generations.
Oh yeah,
From X on down
yeah,
to kids in high school and even middle school now. That's easily accepted because that's among them, and they recognize that, and they have no difficulty, accepting people as multiracial. One of the rather embarrassing things now that's happened is that an Olympic gymnast has been stripped of her bronze medal,
yeah.
and she's multi or biracial.
Jordan Childs.
Yes, and so you've got people, recognizing the fact that you got people who are at least half black,
Mm.
okay, and then a diverse culture like Brazil, right,
Yeah.
developing a gymnastics team which was dynamite, right,
Oh yeah.
and one of them winning the gold at the top, and the other two black women, you know, doing that wonderful gesture. I'm gonna
Well,
print that picture and put it up on my own wall because
yes.
I think it's so cool. But what what I didn't realize was that there was going to be this racist reaction against that.
Yeah,
You know,
I was surprised. This
me
is
too.
what
I was really surprised.
this is what's supposed to be Olympic. This sportsmanship
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and reaching out and the
yeah.
global thing. And
No, I think they wanted to say that black people should only run. So they should just shut up and run. It's
all
an
right, so
adaptation of "Shut Up and Dribble," right? Remember
yeah,
that?
yeah, oh, yeah. Since you brought up the Olympics, uh, I I like that gesture of Biles and Childs. I also like Sha'Carri Richardson's anchor leg of the 4x100. Did you see that?
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
She gets a baton and just goes,
She
goes
burned.
right by. Yeah, it goes right by. She goes up from like nowhere to the front, and then she like two strides ahead of her. The next person behind, she just looks behind her as she goes. It was like Secretariat looking back.
Yeah,
I love that. Sha'Carri Richardson. I don't think she was second. She won silver in the 100, but gold. That was a golden moment.
yeah,
4x100. But I wanted to ask you about breaking.
yeah.
Dan, I I'm a closet breaker. I'm a breaker.
I was really embarrassed by the Australian, but anyway.
Hey, look, I want to ask you. Look, I know a lot of people talk. I think number one, she's older. Number two, she's academic. Number three, she's from Australia. Number four, she was sincere. She wasn't. The kangaroo move. The kangaroo move on Top Rock. That's
Yeah,
not so bad. That's not so bad. I mean, look, as a breaker myself, I'm all Top Rock. I'm all
yeah,
vertical, not
straight up
horizontal.
vertical. You vertical.
Yeah, but I saw her. In fact, she went up against a Filipino,
Yes, she did.
and love logistics. And logistics put her away because she was
Right,
just
right.
too good. So it was obvious why Ray Gun is her name from Australia got no points.
Yeah,
But I didn't even bother looking at the social media reaction saying, just making fun of her. And now Raygun, has been devastated. She's hurt. I think I think people should just lighten up on Raygun. She wasn't being, was she, what is their grief? What is their argument that Reagan was racist or appropriating
yeah.
racism?
I was worried it was going to go there. I was worried that it was going to go there. People were going to make it about race. She just did reasons. There were a lot of people who got 0 points.
Yeah,
And, and the reason they got 0 points is clearly the judges favored traditional moves, right? They were looking for what I call clearly brand traditional moves, the blend of East Coast and West Coast. That's
yeah.
right. Okay,
Top rock,
and
bottom rock,
that's
power
right.
move.
They wanted well, and you had to do all three levels, right?
It's almost like the compulsory figures in figure skating.
There you go. That's a great comparison. I think
Right.
that's quite white of
That's
you,
why
but
I
I
said.
mean that's okay.
That's why I said the figure eight. Figure eight. Don't give me a figure nine. I don't want a figure nine.
That's not
Give me a
it.
figure eight. Don't give me a figure seven. I don't want a figure seven.
Oh my
Figure
god.
eight. Yeah.
Oh my god.
No,
Yeah, yeah.
I loved it. Men's and women. I thought I would only like the women because I usually just like to look at women. But no, I like the men too. And if you see my column on the Aldef blog, breaking news, I love breaking.
Yeah, it
Uh,
was it was cool. I really enjoyed it. I thought to see a world-based competition, it was so cool. That was
yeah,
half of my the reason that I was intrigued, right? Was because
yeah.
you got people from freaking Bosnia,
Oh,
in the
Lithuania,
Czech Republic, right?
the
And they were
Lithuanian.
and they were good, I mean, it was like okay, I could take, and they even were able to do the Latin two step, man. Whenever
Yeah.
because a
Well,
lot of
look.
the music was Latin jazz, you know,
Yeah. Oh,
it was
yeah.
Latin
Yeah.
jazz,
Well, look.
Latin funk, and it
Yeah.
was it was. I said, "Oh, let's see how they do," and they were really good, man. The Japanese were really good, I mean,
Look. The Japanese woman won the gold.
yes,
The
yes,
Canadian Asian won the
yeah, that's
gold.
right, that's right.
And, and so it was so Asian. I mean, Who's
Oops,
appropriating? It's like
oops.
the Asians were doing it,
Yeah, I
not the
was surprised the
whites.
South Koreans didn't place better. You know,
They
uh,
were good, but
yeah,
they were
they were
good.
good. They
But
were good, but yeah, the
The
Californians.
Japanese,
Once again, the Californians were really good. West Coast, man.
although, yeah, but logistics, the Filipina
Yeah,
from Chula
she
Vista,
she was really good, man. You know?
yeah, by way of Miami, she was really good, uh, and she barely she got aced out by the French,
Right.
by the French rapper, French breaker, and then
Yeah, wasn't he actually a Moroccan or North African of some kind?
no, the Filipina was up against a French a French breaker in the on the men's side. The it was a Mexican American from Florida,
Right,
Victor.
right, right.
Victor. He was aced out by I forget who. The finals there were a an African American, or no, let's see. There was a black guy from France,
Right, right.
and the ultimate winner, a Canadian Asian, a can Asian.
Well, a lot of the people who were breaking for France though were like you know, uh Moroccan or Algerian
Right?
ancestry and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well,
you know.
what I was surprised by is that it was also a generational thing.
Yeah,
So,
hey, there we go.
so if you were older, and by old I mean there were some 41-year olds,
Yeah.
breakers,
Yeah.
uh, 38, 41, and Victor from the United States, he was 30, I believe. So he's like up there compared to a 21-year-old. 10 years,
Yeah.
that's like two generations of breakdancing, right?
Yeah.
At least. But they've all been breaking a long time. But the older ones knew some of the classic
That's
moves.
it right
And
there.
yeah, and the
That's it right
original,
there.
and
Especially when they did their freezes, right?
yeah,
They froze in the right position and they were facing, because the freeze isn't in your face.
yeah,
Okay, the freeze says, "What are you going to do about that? How are you going to answer that?" Right?
yeah,
And so the traditionalists knew that and they understood it. But when you heard the commentators, they would always put the knock on people who were ending up not facing their opponent, right? When they
yeah,
did their freeze, so
yeah. That's a good point. That there's all sorts of different things that were in the original breaking from the Bronx, 50 years ago. I mean, this was a battle. Instead of kicking
yeah.
someone's butt, instead of talking about their mama, you danced it off.
Now instead of whipping out a freaking 9 mil,
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, instead of fighting, and that's why breaking is the. I think it was an exciting addition. It was so. I mean, this is why the Olympics exist, so that
like I
so that
said, it was so
yeah,
culturally hip.
yeah,
It was culturally hip as hell, and it showed like you said, it was not just representative of a younger generation.
yeah.
Okay,
And
and
all
it
over
was
the world.
global. It was global as hell, man. It was really cool. I think to be able to see that, it reminded me of when you go to Asia and you watch MTV,
Mm,
in Asia, right?
yeah,
It's it is so cool, right? Because it covers a broad expanse of different cultures. Everything from Australia, right, over to Indonesia and into India, and then all the way up to South Korea,
yeah.
and and they have multilingual VJs, right?
Oh
They
yeah, yeah,
speak different languages. They do commercials in different languages. It's like mind blowing, man.
yeah. But here's the disappointment. Here's the disappointment about breaking. It's not coming to America in 2028. They're not
What?
bringing. They're
What
not.
are they crazy?
No, no,
It's
they
gonna be in LA, man.
I know they left it off. And here's the thing: Snoop Dogg
Oh, that's gotta change.
he introduced the competition, the breaking competition that day.
That's
He,
right.
he
That's
was the
right.
first guy, and the thing is, uh, they've got other sports they want to introduce. They're going to bring back baseball. They're going to have cricket. I think
Well,
they're wrong. I
that's
think they're wrong.
now. Aha. That's understatement. There it is,
Yeah,
my buddy Emil Amok. master of understatement.
Yeah,
You got
exactly,
that
exactly.
is very wrong.
I, I
That is incredibly stupid.
you got
But then
to
taking away Jordan Childs, bronze, that's incredibly stupid too. So
well, and for the reason they gave, like the time limit, she was like a couple seconds off the time limit in which her coach could lodge the argument or
yeah,
something. I
but
mean,
they said, but they have evidence that they got it in on time.
so I just well, I haven't been following that because I was just more despondent about breaking being left off the 2020
Yeah,
because it,
no,
it
I
was
think
it was
rightfully
my
so.
favorite. It was my favorite next to the old guy type of events like archery, like
Okay,
I mean that was fascinating. The finals in archery.
yeah,
It was right. It was close. It was
yeah.
close. And, but
It is. Unfortunately, it's another one that's gone very because
yeah,
it's really
the
interesting. You know that
Koreans.
South Koreans make great bows. In fact, one of my colleagues that used to teach here in the Bay Area is
Mhm.
spending more of her time now in South Korea, in Seoul, and managing a an art exhibit. And anyway, some of my stuff from the strike and the movement, the social justice movement, is featured in an art exhibit over there. But
Oh,
anyway,
great.
the yeah, yeah, it's another side.
Next
But
time I'm in Seoul, I've been in Seoul once and only to the airport. So
yeah, I've been in Seoul once too, and I got off the airport for a little while, and I was really surprised.
yeah,
That
I'd like to go back. I'd love to go back.
it reminded me of L.A. and not in necessarily a good way,
Oh, okay.
because it was really smoggy. You know,
Oh, yeah, I can
they
see
got
that.
a pollution problem. But
I,
anyway, yeah, and then my colleague has sent me a bow,
oh,
an
cool.
archery bow from yeah. They asked me what I wanted, and I said, yeah, if you can get me an Asian, a Korean, a South Korean antique traditional style bow, that'd be really nice. And they actually sent me one. Yeah, it's like
Man, I was going to get you a 6-pack of roasted seaweed. What do you mean?
yeah, I got enough green porcelain. I don't need any more, porcelain. But anyway,
All right.
the
So the archery.
are talking about the generational stuff is really important.
Yeah.
So we covered the racial thing, right?
Yeah.
That the younger generations have no problem with people of mixed ethnicity and mixed race.
So is there what kind of thing are they going to show at the convention next week? Are they going to say, "Hey, we're going to come together. We're going to," or are they going to? I don't know. How's that going to resolve with the
I
protest?
think they're going to push unity. I think they're going to push unity as much as they can. I think they're going to push joy. They've been pushing joy like it's gone out of style.
Joy, 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 joy. It's all joy. Waltz has joy. Everyone has joy.
Yeah, yeah. Waltz is really
Ultimately,
good though. He's because he's funny.
yeah.
I mean,
Waltz.
he's funnier than hell, and he's funny in a midwestern way. I mean, there's two kinds of funny. Well, there's three kinds of funny people that I think are just naturally funny as hell. Well, one of them is Southern cowboys, right? Southern cowboys, Midwesterners, and Western cowboys. It's
Yeah,
the cowboys are just funnier than hell, especially if they've lived their lives on farms or ranches. Their sense of humor
yeah.
is unbelievable, man.
But the thing about Waltz is he has a self-deprecation that some people don't get. They'll say, "Oh, here's Walls and Harris making fun of white people." That
Yeah,
I saw
yeah.
that headline in the right wing. Yeah, he's making fun of white people now. He, the white guy, making fun of white people. Oh, that's acceptable. That's called self-deprecation. It's acceptable. It's not seen as racist. But
Do you and I know any comedians that make fun of white people that are white?
uh, I
I
think I don't know. Hey, Dan.
don't know. The first guy that comes to mind for me is Lenny Bruce, and
Yeah, yeah.
the second guy that comes to mind for me is George Carlin.
Yeah. Look,
You
I mean, those are the only people you can make fun of, other white people. So
They made fun of everybody, man. Lenny Bruce made fun of everybody, and he
Okay.
got away with it. I mean, he would do some ethnic jokes, but they
Yeah,
were,
he
they
did.
were
He did.
relatively mild. They were relatively mild. He
Don
would take,
Rickles.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Rickles
yeah.
did.
Don
Oh
Rickles,
no, Rickles was funny. He's funny. He's funny.
yeah,
I like.
now his thing was insult. Shecky Green too. It was a lot of insult humor. But
All right, Dan.
yeah.
I have to run. I have to run.
All right.
I have something to get to at
Oh,
3:30. But
there's
look,
there's a pill for that. You have the runs. What?
yeah.
What? Pepto
So Dan, thank you
Bismol
for
works
being
in a
here.
pinch.
We'll, we'll look.
Just
We'll
clench.
look.
Just clench.
Yeah. Okay. We'll look. We'll Kegels. It's Kegels. They're called. So we'll look at next week. We'll look and see how it goes. I know. No
It's going to
surprises.
be fun.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be fun. I think there's going to be a hell of a lot of excitement. I don't know how long it's going to last, because now she's got the economic plan out. People got something to shoot at.
Yeah.
What it comes down to is how you going to pay for that, baby.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
you going to pay for
Well,
that? You know.
you're going to tax the rich. That's
Well, that's the plan.
yeah.
But will the rich bail? Because
Yeah.
they will bail. A lot of them will bail. Look what they did to California, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who left first?
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, people are leaving now, and
yeah.
that's the
Well, a
thing.
lot of remember back in the '80s, late '80s, early '90s. Some of the electronics companies left for Idaho. Remember that?
I don't recall that. Electronic.
Yeah, yeah, just a few, and it looked like it was going to be a rush. People were going to head out, take their corporation, and go to Idaho. But then people realized, what the hell is there in Idaho besides really fresh air and nice nature? You
And
know?
potatoes.
Yeah,
Potatoes. Don't
a lot of
don't
russets. A lot of
don't leave
russets. Yeah,
don't leave out the obvious. All right, Dan.
sugar
Adios.
beets. Sugar beets. They used to
Amigo.
do sugar beets too. Anyway, yeah. Okay, I'll let you go.
And
You have the runs. I know. There's a pill.
see you next week. I'll be in touch. We'll
All
talk
right. All
what's
right.
going on. She
Regards
gives her
to the family, especially your lovely spouse.
yeah, and likewise. And I think that I think she'll have to give the speech of her life on Thursday, right?
Yeah, I think she'll be fine.
Yeah,
It's
she's
what
true.
comes after. I want to see how she handles interviews and stuff like that. But
She'll
she's
handle
really
it.
good. Yeah.
She'll handle it in her interview. She knows it. Okay. All right.
All
Very
right.
good.
Take
Daniel
care.
Phil Gonzalez, Asian American Studies, College of Ethnic Studies, San Francisco State University, Professor Emeritus, my friend who knows almost everything. Knows almost everything, except I know he didn't show me his bottom rock. I showed off my top rock. He didn't show me his bottom rock. Breaking. Breaking's inspiring. I'm, why isn't it coming back? Okay, maybe if Kamala Harris is president, she'll make it come back. She'll say you got to have breaking, got to have breaking. All right, that's it for our show today. Hey, I'm doing this thing in Austin, and I want to tell you about it. And it's a show. It's a storytelling show. It's me and my friend Erilyn. It's a live show at Unity of Austin, Tuesday, September 3rd, 7 p.m. behind the gas station, free parking. That means something in Texas. Free parking, and that's for your car, not your horse, your car. And here's the scan, and you can just, touch that scan. Oh, do I have the scan? I don't have the scan. Oh, shoot. Sorry about that. I want to show the scan so that you can see there, the scan. Scan that, and you can get all the ticket information. My friend Erilyn Hughes, also known as the Queen of Weird, before Tim Walz made it a thing in 2024. Erilyn was the Queen of Weird in Austin. I met her in some story studios studying with the great Mike Daisy over during COVID. We met online. We had classes. We did storytelling shows, but all online. We never did anything in person. And we thought, hey, we ought to do something in person. And we thought, okay, yeah, I guess we can, I'll come to Austin. So my friend Erilyn said, yeah, come on to Austin. We're gonna do this show, me and her, storytelling show, meeting for the first time, never in person, never face to face, only online. Is that going to be different? Is that going to be strange? What kind of stories can we share about our friendship, about the modern day world we live in, about friendship, about connection, about storytelling and memoir? That's on Tuesday, September 3rd. Check it out. Scan that if you can see it. Unity of Austin. That's the church it's going to be in. It's not a religious show. No gods will call. No one will shake you down. September 3rd, Austin, off of West Highway 290, 5501 West Highway 290 in Austin, September 3rd. Scan that if you can. Check out Unity of Austin and find out more. September 3rd. That's a Tuesday. It's Emil and his friend Carolyn Hughes in a storytelling show you'll want to see in person. I'll be there in person. I will. All right, that's it for our show today. Hey, thank you for joining us. Really. It's going to be exciting next week. Like I said, I'm not going to be in Chicago because, look, it's a television show. We're going to talk about it like a television show. Where's the drama? Where's the rhetoric? They're going to talk about Joe Biden on night one, and then the Clintons and the Obamas, and they make you feel good about democracy. They'll show some up-and-coming Democrats, bring out Tim Walz and bring out Kamala. Boom. Campaign begins in earnest. So check us out next week. Check me out on the ALDEF blog, aaldef.org/blog, my column, The Politics of Mispronunciation, aaldef.org/blog. Hey, that's it for our show. You know, I end every show with a little meditation because, you know, I confess, I was a bad guy. I was not a good guy early on in my life. But that's all past. And I'm good now. I'm not angry. I don't need to punch someone in the face. I don't need to do anything bad like that because I meditate. It helps. It does. A little loving kindness goes a long way. I couldn't have said that 10 years ago, even 15 years ago. But now, I've let all that go. I'm good now. I'm good. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. Till next time. Mahal.